hosting, we get better deals, everything from, even Microsoft gives them better deals for SQL Server stuff.
Like
Just get cheaper, yeah.
$20.
Which makes it a high burden on us for support. But yeah, that's the next part we have to do is we have to look at analyzing the data fast. It's pretty much taken down and crashed.
Yeah. And that, if you try that on your system, that's gonna slow them down too.
This beer is awesome.
Yeah.
The vice versa.
But hopefully, what I'm reading, you know better than me, the scale out ability.
Oh, yeah.
Cassandra will probably help us a lot.
And you can, have just nodes dedicated just for reporting that don't affect your.
I'm here.
In fact, that's what we do a lot on our, currently on our SQL stuff. We have a read-only replication area, and that's a lot of times we run our reporting analysis
I'm
all
more of a
bit,
developer,
so we're not hitting what's actually being used.
Right. No.
But it's still,
John,
don't hear what we need.
Yeah.
Relative, I mean.
And I'm
not
sure
that
we,
we have in Atlanta, but we
have a
have
SQL in that
We have a
that
data
is
center.
very cheap.
And that's what the international customers
Trying
do.
to,
Yeah, we
Which one of the biggest issues?
you should have seen us, we've had representatives coming in.
I have no idea.
Their eyes all light up as soon as we
Well,
start
yeah, but I
talking
mean,
about
like,
Cassandra.
Yeah.
Because they're
Um,
big data.
for the big data side,
Yeah.
logistics generally, I mean, that's where.
You have to do, they're long gonna require us to do Microsoft.
Yeah.
Right now, we're trying to do what they call interconnected retail, which is basically how to automate everything and get it all
You know,
connected, so
it's,
you're not.
the labor costs in so many people outside the US is so low,
Amazon, of course, is huge.
that they would rather, get something less expensive with a little more labor to it.
Any infrastructure
Even
they
though
build, they
from
sell.
what I've read, it sounds like
Yeah,
Cassandra's
they-
mature enough.
There was a squeal somewhere in their infrastructure.
And
to figure out how to sell it.
my company would wanna move me to
Amazon.
Europe somewhere, I'll
Yeah, man.
gladly go and, work remote.
What's the name of your company?
Conceptual Mind Works, we're down in San Antonio.
The guy
Is that where their headquarters is? or-
Yeah, yeah.
is amazing, dude. He actually, it's the
Nice
same
to
guy.
work.
This
Yeah.
tells you.
Yeah,
That's
the
what
product name is Sabosity.
Who started off.
Sabosity is the name of the.
Walmart guys.
Okay.
Distribution, had that vision.
Yeah.
Went over to Amazon.
I haven't heard of it. I did that.
They had money,
Yeah, it's,
they didn't have to make the same mistakes.
We started,
And you had
How
some
old
of
is
the
it?
deep in automation, Walmart, it took a while.
12 years.
Yeah.
Since
We
we
have
have
a lot of
progress. And,
That's cool, man. Awesome.
that was, back then, a lot of people didn't know about the cloud and, they thought, you wanted your data in your office.
Yeah, we're off,
And you had to convince them that, no, the best way for you to do your, medical records is to have someone else worry about, having a location getting away in a tornado.
That's actually one thing I
actually
thought,
next to it,
we get off on a technical soapbox.
Yeah.
That's one of those areas I don't understand. Medical industry.
Some
pizza?
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, you gotta remove doctors, obviously,
my general practitioner, so, he moved out of his little, he was started off as a thing, where there were several doctors that were overlapping. And he moved out, so I went with him. And the first thing he did was, no more books.
Yeah, there
He
you go.
gave everybody laptops, wireless connection. He doesn't write out his prescription.
Oh, no.
He prints it out and signs it. But this was,
That's what I was just kind of.
20 years ago. So he
So
was,
you get someone.
One of the,
yeah, because he was thinking, it's like,
This
he
is
would
our
see
back.
with him, because I'll come in
Oh,
and say, this is my symptoms. And he says, I seem to remember those symptoms maybe a few years
Yeah,
ago.
we just
I said,
actually-
yeah, I think I
You
do."
never see these people.
Yeah, he said, yeah. Then what he'll do is he'll say, this is the antibiotic I gave you. I did that out that way, he said, because the truth is, your body's reacting different.
So I have
And I said, yes, it is.
friends who are.
So he was able to search for it. Go through a power.
Pizza's here, guys, so grab some pizza.
yeah, we had one customer in Missouri.
We're very
It's one of those towns got hit by that tornado, real bad tornado years ago. Just right across the line.
Perfectly consistent.
But they're technically,
Schedules match.
but their records are on here.
doing that.
So I think 2 days later, they went on hotel.
So it is.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as
Yeah.
I used to do a lot of gaming. I don't do it anymore. So I'm not a good person to participate in it.
Yeah.
But friends of mine,
They had not just broccoli, they
they're all
had-
gotten older, they have the most expensive stuff, you know.
Yeah, I can't say I don't work.
You know, I walk, that's it, right? So you, like I said, you have a different flow. But I'm the same as you, whatever the technology's out. Like I said, mostly do like data, data stuff, right? But,
Addressing.
you know, things you just get busy.
Yeah, you know.
Like I said, that like, they watch you over there. They sit there and watch you like a zoo. You're just watch you, you're just so busy all the time. I was even talking like, he would like you, like, how's that guy? Cause you're like the center of every lot of the universe, you know, I don't know how you survive.
Yeah, that's often painful, but yeah, whenever I get time, when I spend mostly with movies, movies, and like movies and all that is possible. But yeah, that's like more reason, especially in holidays. Otherwise, I explore
Yeah.
explore.
Good, so you, since you guys been doing a year and a half now,
I think
so pretty happy with it as opposed to other,
Well, you mean,
Cassandra versus some of the other ones?
we looked at, Gibson's and them,
Yeah.
long ago.
Yeah, I wasn't feeling well.
But, you know, it has that single point, yeah, the lights got hesitant, we can't handle that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
We're
Taking
looking
my
at
vacation.
Yeah, you just have to make sure you're using SSDs, one of those
By that
SSDs.
time, there was.
And
One of the guys was
get
asking
your
for,
repairs
like,
done.
geolocation.
But now, we're using 24/7. So your data is all 24/7. Ours, we have locked down, so we just schedule all our repairs and everything.
Yeah, this guy.
Fire up for the doctors in the morning.
Poor logic, they're done.
Yeah, we're hoping we can do more like do those, have enough replication and stuff like that, so we can shut down one work on it.
Yeah.
Bring it back in.
Directions or Uber.
So, we know a lot of people that.
Yeah, I don't mean to preempt your talk. That was packaged in there somewhere. 'Cause he was curious.
And SSDs, it may not be necessary. You know, those are fast enough that,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one
just have
of
to
the,
try it.
our big thing is, I think like one of the things,
Everybody in ETA and should be honest, right? Should be able to communicate and talk to that
we're worried somewhat about paradigm shifted.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm hoping he's gonna talk a little bit about how they set up some of their factories.
Well, when I was trying to read about Cassandra when we were doing this, like, stop, okay? Everything about secret databases is trash.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
But the problem is you have so many people that have worked on those and
Right. Yeah.
getting them going. Yeah. It's going to be interesting times.
Oh, yeah. And youngins want these stuff alone. Why can't they do it physically?
Well, the company I work at is really old, and they actually started their, instead of using databases, when they started off, they were to a file.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's still to this day, some of the stuff you look at some of the data, I had a new programmer that just came in like
So you have to worry about
6 or 8 months ago.
error, delays.
And he's really smart, and he's like,
That's rough stuff out for people.
I tell him, don't be offended if you said you laugh at things.
You're putting it down.
And so I'll point it out to him, I'll say, you notice that account name is appended with an underscore to an ID. Well, but when you're doing it in a file, that makes for a nice file name.
Remember, there was a reason all this was
You
done.
said you came from somewhere.
It may be not the best way or the correct way to do it now, but it was then.
It worked out.
I remember doing something where the file name got you to a database, which then you could look up stuff. So it was a double lookup. Load the database here, and then
Happy to be in a place that isn't so cold.
there was a NoSQL database that did kind of big hash maps. You could load basically a gigantic hash map, you could persist a file, and then you could do time series this way because the file name would be over time, you know, this block is only from time A to time B. So it never changes after that, so you can leave that file alone, you don't have to go to it. So it actually worked pretty well. For that little tiny
It was.
But that's the thing, you can, like this, back when they were doing file stuff, they didn't know they were gonna be out of business next year.
Don't invest in
$5 million
product.
Friends of mine, the
Yeah. But as long as, when I came in there, the country, they weren't proud.
Yeah.
So he said, sometimes we did things that, sometimes people were proud at, but when you're not sure you're gonna be out of business next month, yeah, do this because it's fast.
Yep.
And then you hope you can get back.
Yeah, that's the problem, you know.
Yeah.
Then when you start to gain some traction, there's no time to go back.
No time at all.
Yeah, I left Arizona and just.
You're going out?
I'm looking for.
As young as I was, I was at the top of the company.
In the, what was going on in the,
So you're looking at, I'm the only older guy. The youngest guy was
they actually had their.
So to get opportunities, that's.
Right.
They're going a little closer than that.
So I was offered a job with Lucasfilms in California. My family's from the West Coast. It's kind of an interesting.
Well, if you have the money, you can get it down.
They don't pay much more.
Resolution.
The cost of living is a fortune, right? So they run a bunch of roommates and this kind of thing. And then this for Dell, it was like you didn't.
Especially they do a LiDAR flyover.
Recruiters are recruiting you, you don't even know which company they're recruiting.
Right.
Not at all.
Not really.
You're going through these, the tests or whatever, for them to, eventually.
Contracting company?
No, it's just, it's like a, whatchamacallit, you put in your, put your information in,
Yeah, they look at skin tones and shapes.
like kind of application process. Okay. And then it's like, no idea. Like this Fortune 50 company. I can't remember if it's through university or, it was so long, it was 11 years ago now, 9 years ago.
Right.
So I can't remember.
Facebook did.
I actually in 2001, 2003 is when want to start it. Look to be in it. And so the recruiting process, like I said, is interesting because you're blind to where the opportunity is. And you go through like the technical screening, the technical interviews, or whatever, and then eventually, and I didn't even know where in the country, because they're doing it for multiple companies.
I've never heard of that process to be so anonymous.
Yeah, it was weird.
I think skills there.
I mean, it was data management, So, I went through all the programs, and then eventually, Dell, and then Texas, I had gone through this, the recruiter process. And then they made whatever recommendation, and then I had to go through that. You know, that you've been through these, every interview I've been on, since I was, panel interviews, so your interviews are all day long, multiple people, typical. And so they flew me out here. Yeah, so at that point I knew who it was, I knew where it was, and I was asking friends. Anybody that had ever been here told me how great it was. Like, oh, it was very cool, it's super this, where are you? When I came out here, I had no idea that I was moving to Round Rock. So I got to Round Rock, I had no idea, they hired me. Took me months to figure out where I was. It was kind of a long run out there. But I never realized all that context to say the other opportunity was in North Carolina. So I'm very, very much. West Coast. I've never had and then I just figured, after you kind of understand it's relatively people are really cool.
You get to in fact, I knew about them for jumps when I was
Really?
you guys would be able to get free data.
Use it for what it is.
Co-founders that were like 2010.
Just rate your expert.
That's the same year by and I was also and I mostly worked in a very similar work structure. Staff augmentation. I just walked around. Right to make an offer.
That's all he has.
And that actually gave me.
Men's small will do it for her.
There was a driving force for me to actually have to because that was I thought like that was my chance. And I was pretty late in my career. And I was on my way to like what once really long time. 8
So whose swag did I just learn down there?
I wear it first, if I like it, it's not.
I just turned your swag down, I'm sorry. Yours is an orange stuff. Okay, so tell me about Physi and Geolocation.
It is fun. And I was going to be very creative, great scope so we have responsibility for
That means I don't have a regular job.
Yeah,
Keep
certainly
reading
more
words, but I have resumes without
Just because
applications.
if
And
you're meeting the
reading
ladies,
bunches here.
moving the needles.
Gone to the point of educating everyone in the world. No, so that's what I do. I mean, yeah, that's what I do. It's not really enough to actually make a living. So I come to these just to feel like all the stuff, you know. Yeah. These are just taken for the drive over.
Something like that as.
Or the parking. No. Yeah, they will. Well, we get street parking in 3 hours.
So you now Cassandra user?
No, we're
Yesterday.
Cassandra 1.0?
Oh, no, not
Cassandra
about one.
Which
Yeah, we're examining it. You guys,
we started using it about a year ago, so we're not really full bore. It still takes us a while to take it seriously. I mean, sorry, not taking it seriously, but to really integrate into a lot of our stuff.
Well, how, we're kind of, release size.
3. We're talking tiny right now. We're looking at mainly a lot of our logs that may not be critical to the function of our system, just to try it out. So we have very, from Oracle size, very gigantic logs. They just look like hundreds of millions, close to a billion rows. Like, well, we have different ways we cut it and slice it. One of these problems, it's used often for analytics. And so we're trying to, we use it about 2 or 3 ways in code. So we make 2 or 3 Cassandra copies for those particular purposes, but we haven't yet made it to the evolution stage yet. How can we do that? I'm just smart, I guess. No, I didn't mention. In this case, oh yeah, for this case it's log data. So user logs into the web, user logs out, user changes email address, user kind of what their activity is. So, you know, if you have 100 million active users and they're doing stuff all day long, the log fills up. Yeah. We don't have quite that much actually, but it's big. It's a million. Oh, yeah. Which company is it? Okay. You sell directly to the doctors or is there, okay. Because I heard, like Anthem, not Anthem, starts with an A, they have a big cloud service, to do a lot of ERP. EMR, yeah, the electronic medical records, EMR, yeah, that thing. Yeah. They're here in Austin.
Yeah, well, we're in a data center right now. Haven't transitioned there yet.
Yeah, we don't use clouds at all. We are located. Here in Austin, we have 2 data centers actually. We actually work downstairs, 3 floors downstairs. Yeah, our data center is, there's one up north and there's one in another city in Nevada.
Oh, okay. Which company?
Oh, that I don't know. We changed companies recently. We had one downtown for a while, and that one, we had water come in on the roof, and it came right down into the floor, the data center. They had water coming in. Yeah, it's like, okay guys, I think we're done with our contract with this. Fortunately, nothing was damaged, but, you know, still, the chances.
My one phone took down.
Yeah.
Like, you would do it to get it.
But, Ben wants to have a data center, and so, and that's Texas one is from that brand spanking thing.
Okay.
Yeah, we are with them.
No?
Yeah, you know, San Antonio, we were gonna go with one in San Antonio, but then they changed their model to like, yeah, at least, you know, 30,000 square feet. Man, we need a cage.
Yeah.
Or no, we need a rack.
Yeah.
Half a rack.
Gross.
Then, well, why don't you have a rack space? No, we wanna touch our forces machines.
Oh, yeah, Rackspace is totally hosted, right?
Yeah.
You don't go in there.
Had a location services thing.
Right.
I've almost used it for personal purposes, like, hey, it'd be nice to have a machine out there at all times, but, yeah, I'm just a little worried about paying monthly costs. Yeah, for convenience. Yeah, I think we're gonna do a 3-node cluster plus, another 3-node cluster, what do you call those, not clusters, but, data center. So to do 2 data centers, 3 nodes in each, and we may have a third conceptual data center that will just be co-located in the same data center, but be for analytical purposes. So you isolate off the third data center and attach Spark to that one.
And that's what's on the fourth one is at.
Yeah, but it just doesn't, yeah. No, it's totally cool. It was also really amazing was, we did a lot of planning, learning, conceptual, and it's not, I should say we, but our team did that, I didn't do it personally. And they put it into production, worked, and just like, whoa, Cassandra's our data, it's there, it's fast. Yeah.
Install. Okay, we're done.
Yeah.
Create.
The ops team like, oh, this will take us weeks.
Yeah. Go drink a beer.
Yeah, right.
We'll keep to the same schedule.
Yeah, right. Done. Yeah, so far it's been a great experience.
Yeah, we have, you know, our chart and stuff. And the performance, we have Max TV.
So who's the organizer?
When they went to, my secret link, Max TV. You know where those names are like Maria, my secret, Maria, they did my secret, Max TV? Those are the founders' kids.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Max, Maria, and
Max, Maria, yeah.
ah. I would have never, ever guessed.
Oh,
But
he's
it's-
like,
Yeah, but I can see that now.
yeah. But, so we went to Max TV, just a big old secret database. So we moved all that data into Cassandra. And it took a while.
Did you run as a, dual for a long time? Or
No.
All the tasks.
Yeah, we were, the problem is we were trying to upgrade the system at the same time because we were stuck, for terror reasons.
Well, sensible.
Yeah. On like we're talking 32 bit rack.
Wow.
Moved 1.7.
That's a jump.
It was this, it was last year. And, you know, we didn't do full testing, but we did, replay testing. So we record like, replay, like 10 days worth of actions. What are the actions? And you just, like, okay, roll back, start over. And
That's amazing.
yeah.
We're spending months just to upgrade JBoss 5 to JBoss 8.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference.
And with, the Cassandra, restore and back. So nice.
We're using a third party.
No, oh, well, what you take a snapshot,
Yeah.
and we wouldn't play it back to the like top center or anything, we just shut the Cassandra resources down, smoke all the data and just copy it back in.
That was pretty
Well,
good.
actually, no, when you copy it, when you do a snapshot, all it does is mark it,
You did a great definition.
it does a link
That you
on
guys-
file.
Yeah, the hard links.
Yeah, the hard
Off databases.
So,
And
when we got ready to
They are
restore,
in the hands-on.
we just smoke all the stuff to data and redo the hard link. And in 5 minutes, we have a gigabyte across 5 nodes restored and ready to go. And so we'll do a new replay
All right, hey guys,
with a MySQL.
probably gonna get started here. As most of you know, I'm Nick. There's a couple new faces, I think, in the crowd, so good to meet you. I'm Nick. I'm the guy that sends you all the emails through Meetup, organizes all these. Organizational things. Someone just stopped by and dropped off some flyers for a code-a-thon happening at Capital Factory this weekend. If anybody's interested, come grab one of these. $22,000 in prizes.
Is that the Lowe's code?
The Lowe's
that codes
code-a-thon.
Everything that you touch when you show up?
Perhaps it's not a good code-a-thon. I am not aware. Flyers were just dropped off.
So they talked about, as a mobile developer, I take a look at those things.
Gotcha.
It is a dangerous place to go.
Okay.
Is that Lowe's in the?
That Lowe's, that's
Oh,
Lowe's.
Is that the grocery store or the, build your house?
Build your house. Oh, I should show up for that.
Okay, anyway, back to Cassandra stuff. Obviously, we have today's meetup. We have February's meetup on the schedule as well. We'll have Nate McCall, who's a local guy, uses Cassandra, or works for a consulting company for Cassandra. You've probably met him before at some of the meetups, so he'll be talking about security in Cassandra and configuring your clusters to use SSL and encryption and all that good stuff, so that should be a good talk. Put that on your calendars. Besides February, we don't have any other meetups on the schedule yet, so if you want to give a talk, please definitely reach out to me. If you have something you want to hear about, also reach out to me, and then I can maybe see if we can get somebody to talk about that. Yeah, besides that, grab as much pizza and swag and beer and soda as you would like so that I don't have to carry it home and Matt doesn't have to carry it home. But now let's get started. Here's Matt.
Thank you. Hey guys, how you doing? So I am Matt Vorst. I am the founder of Physi. It's pronounced Physi, like physical activity, not fizzy beer. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of history on myself. So I came from the corporate world. I worked at a small company. They had maybe 200 folks. Called Entech IRD. They developed automation software. They were later bought by Rockwell Automation, so that's kind of where I cut my teeth. Learned some Java development. After that, I kind of was bit by the entrepreneurial bug. Right? I started a company called Events in Cincinnati. It was basically an event website. This was 2005 or so. Kind of shut that down after a little while. There was too much competition from the meetups and the other organizations like that. And then I had a big success. So I was co-founder of a company called .Loop. They basically make transaction management, e-signature, and negotiation software for the residential real estate market, right? So let's say you want to buy a home, all that paperwork that you used to have to fax back and forth between people, we took that paperwork, brought it online into kind of into our platform that allowed people to share, look at individual revision history on fields, things like that. So we sold to Zillow not too long ago. It was a good success, and now I'm on to Physi. So
Congratulations.
thank you. So I am the founder and CTEO of Physi. So I'm doing a little bit of everything. So. At heart, I'm a Java developer and architect. I love architecting systems, playing with different technologies and making things work. And I've been a Cassandra user since 2011. So this is Physi, pronounced Physi. It's a mobile app that pairs nearby people to play sports. So let's say you want to find someone to play tennis with right now, or someone, invite your friends to an event later in the week. You can get on the app and do that. So our mission is to basically make a smaller, healthier, happier world through play, right? Tennis, I mean, we've got about 40 different sports in there, so that's kind of our mission. So this is kind of what it looks like. We have a map there. You can kind of scroll through folks, invite them to play, and that's about it. So why Cassandra? So you guys, I'm assuming you're all familiar with Cassandra. Has anyone been using it for like less than a year or so? Okay, kind of new to it.
I'm evaluating.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I'm evaluating as well.
gotcha. So you all kind of know a little bit about it. So it's extremely distributed in nature. You get a lot of benefits right out of the gate, right? Being able to, we're on Amazon, AWS, so we have our a multi-availability zone deployment, right? So half of our cluster could go down and everything works just fine, right? The load balancers will route web traffic to the other servers and the system just works. This was something that was very desirable to me. When I was at .loop, we were on a relational database, and disasters happen at the worst possible time, right? So being able to scale up, scale down, and have complete redundancy was something that was very appealing. So the other benefit to Cassandra is that it kind of forces you and your developers to write your applications in a way that makes it more distributed, right? So Cassandra doesn't have the concept of joining tables together, right? Because of that, you have to write your application without doing that. So that's something that I thought was extremely beneficial in architecting new systems. So the other reason is operations is hard, and I kind of touched on this, but relational databases don't scale easily or well, right? We got to a point when we were doing hundreds of thousands of transactions a day, and it was when you hit a wall in a relational database, you're at a wall, right? There's not a lot you can do. You can shard your database. There are some techniques where you can set up a master slave replication, things like that. But it's something you don't want to deal with, especially when you're in a small shop, right? I can't tell you how many times we were at a conference and I was back at the hotel coding while my co-founder was out presenting, right? Just because there were issues. So operations is something that it's fun to do, but it's fun to do when you can do it on your schedule. Right? So and then typically you run into issues with recovering, or we did. So with Physi, right, there are a couple of things that, a couple of location services that we needed, right? We needed to do the standard stuff, like converting postal codes to latitude and longitude, pretty simple. Converting latitude and longitude to postal codes, a little more challenging. Search, right, you want to type in a name, do autocomplete, things like that. And then do a proximity search, where, for example, I want to suggest, I type in a zip code and I want to suggest, or a city, and suggest all of the zip codes around where I am, right? And in other cases, you might just want to know how far away you are from one place or another. So we're going to jump into all that. So with the help of Nick, we have some CQL here. Yes?
So how much resolution did you have on your data store? It looks like you're just doing zip code to location and vice versa as your reverse process?
Yes. So the thing is, 80% of the U.S. population lives, near a city, right? So we started. So the resolution isn't the greatest, right there. But for our use case right now, it kind of fits the bill, right? We have been able to dial that in, right, to get 1 mile resolution, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You can, doing some of the techniques that I'm doing, you can really dial the resolution up or down however you need. So.
Okay, but you're not using any particular political database for political regions?
No.
Okay, neighborhoods, cities.
Are you talking about the Tigris data set that gets you down to census tracts?
I'm talking about whatever he's using. All right, there are many, Tiger is one of them, but there could be others. I mean, you can get reverse geolocation from Google. Apple devices have it for free for a limited data rate. All right, so there are, particularly since you're a mobile app, you actually have access to a lot of data on deep location reverse geocoding, literally a tenth of a second away.
Yes, and we make use of a lot of that stuff now. So I'll get into that.
Okay, sorry to distract, sorry.
Oh, no problem. So Yeah, so thanks to Nick, we have a bunch of CQL examples. I'm embarrassed to say that I am a lover of thrift, right? I've been using it since 2011, and being that I was heads down, you know, coding all the time and managing this or that, I didn't have a chance to kind of, you know, dig back in and hone my skills. So, but I did that over the last couple days, and we have new knowledge to share. So anyway, so that's how you create it. So if we want to convert postal codes to longitude and latitudes, use case would be placing markers on a map, for example. We would use this. Basically, I bought a database, and I just did a simple insert into Cassandra. Extremely simple. So this is what the column family looks like. Create a zip code master table, add the relevant information that I'm going to want to query on. Notice my primary key is country and zip code. That way we can expand other countries pretty easily. We just import another database and we're good to go. So this is an example of some of the data we would insert. So pretty straightforward stuff here. You notice it has the longitude and latitude E6. And I don't like dealing with decimals when I'm storing data and interacting with it if I have to do math on it, right? So basically what I did is I took the decimals out, right? Multiply, or take everything times 10 to the 6 and we're good to go. So.
Was that because, like you said, you didn't like it, or were you aware of some performance issues, or? I tend to stay away from decimals for performance, but I didn't know if you ran into that.
So for me, I just run into issues in the past, right, where you know, you need to do math on it, you lose some precision no matter what you're doing, and this is easy. So
For financial purposes, we don't use the decimal either because of the math rounding problems.
Yeah.
Because you lose stuff.
yeah, absolutely.
We hate it because of international stuff too. Sometimes they put a comma in for the periods, and you have to make sure you return them.
Yeah. So
Anyways.
So yeah, so anyway, so this is a sample select statement in CQL, and just as you would expect, it returns the row that you need. Yes.
I'm sorry, when I hear that, is that because it's a Cassandra thing or your history with databases?
My history with databases and programming in general.
Okay, just want to understand where the biases are. Does Cassandra have a numerics problem or not? Right.
Cassandra does not have a numerics problem. It's me, Java, everything I've done in the past.
Floating
So.
point versus an integer.
So here's some interesting things. So I'm using outdated terminology here. The row width is we have about 10 columns in it, 10 pieces of data. Postal codes cover different geographic areas. Some can be as small as, you know, a block. Some can even be a building, you know, IRS, for example, right? One building has its own zip code. The largest covers 10,000 square miles. I think it's out in Nevada somewhere. But you know, so it's kind of all over the place, and that's why this solution works very well around cities. It doesn't work well in other areas. So.
I have a question here.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure this has to do with your use case, but one thing I noticed on your column family is you didn't choose to do it by sport or by day or by anything else like that. So you just elaborate.
So yeah, so I'm just talking about the location-based services. I'm not jumping into anything else. So when I actually store events and users of events, we actually store that by daytime and sport.
So, but for the location, so, well, I guess my assumption is that you're using the location to say what events are near this location or in this zip code.
Yes,
Right? Okay.
yes. So we dial into, basically we use the zip code that the person is in, the country and zip code,
Right.
in conjunction with the sport that they want to play, and then we look for people, you know, that are also in that table, or in that row of that table.
So then how do you differentiate so hey, we're in 40241. Every activity, every day that activity was created is gonna be in that column, right?
No. Every, the primary key, for example, would be location country, right, zip code and sport. for example.
Oh, so sport is in the.
Correct, yep, the activity is part of that.
Clustering column.
So, that, I actually don't have that table in here, right?
Okay.
But yeah, that's kind of how I would do it. You're gonna have to kind of extrapolate some of the things I'm talking about to your use cases. But yeah, I don't cover that, but I can show you where, you know, another way you could do that. So I want to get into this. So, all right, so another use case, right, and as you pointed out, it's, now you can, you know, determine what zip code you're in, use the location services on your mobile devices to know exactly where you are, right, and even use web APIs. In the early days, that stuff wasn't as available, so we started down the path of not using that and using Cassandra to help with that, right? So what we did, or I'll talk about the relational way of doing it. So in a relational database world, right, you basically know your location, okay? You might try a mile around you, right, and see if there are any points around you, any zip codes that match that area. If it doesn't, you might go to a larger area, right? You might see 3 points, 3 zip codes. You calculate the distance and determine which one was closest, and that's how you approximate what zip code you were in, right? A SQL query would look like this, right? You basically punch in the minimum latitude, the maximum latitude, same thing for longitude, you know, in both the 1 mile and 2 mile boxes, right? And then do the calculations.
So basically, every row in the table is a box.
I'm getting to that. That's the way I'm solving this problem with Cassandra.
Okay.
So the way it would work is each of these data points, right? Each zip code here would have a latitude and longitude associated with it in the relational world, right? So by setting your min and max for both your latitude and longitude, and you would calculate what a 1 mile by 1 mile box would be in both cases. But given that, you could determine what zip codes are around you, and then you know, figure out which one is closest to you in that web application. So, yes.
On your north and south measurement of a mile, as you move further north in the U.S., do you take that in consideration in regards to the longitude and latitude?
So I am getting ready to get to that.
Okay.
So that's right here. So lines of latitude are equally spaced, right? Mostly equally spaced. They're about 69 miles apart, right? When it comes to longitude, right, the closer you get to either of the poles, right, that distance shrinks down, you know, so it can shrink down substantially. It starts out at the same 69 miles. However, you know, it obviously shrinks to 0 when you get to the poles, right? What's that?
Who's gonna be playing tennis at the poles?
Well, not yet. A few more years with global warming, maybe, who knows?
Alaska.
There are cross-country skiers, okay? We have the cross-country skiers, but.
We don't want to discriminate, all right?
I'm not sure.
So yeah, so we just talk about that exactly. So what our solution for this is to mainly handle that in the application, on the application side, right? So when we calculate the distance between the various points, what we would do is we would, the application would handle that, because we can, if we're only returning maybe 100 rows, I don't care if it spans further than what we need. We're actually going to calculate the appropriate distance from one point to the next, right? So I'll let the application level do that work for me. So, so this is what it would look like, right? So I take latitude and longitude E1, right? So I basically take the actual latitude and longitude, right? If it's E6, I divide by 10 to the 5th, right? Or I multiply it by 100, truncate it, and I basically divide every point on the map up into a box, right? And to your point, it's going to be bigger at the top than it needs to be, but the application can sort that out. Then what I will do is I'll store all of the locations within that box, right? So you'll notice here, it's probably a little hard to see, but like the column name would be the country code and the zip code, right? And then we would store in JSON format the entire object, so we knew the actual latitude, longitude. We deserialize it, the application sorts out the ones that are too far away. Yes?
So why didn't you choose to use a projection rather than staying in spherical coordinates? I mean, Mercator projection flattens it out. There are other projections you could have used.
This is a very simple way to do it, right? It's easy for all developers to kind of wrap their minds around. I am kind of the mindset of let's build technology, that's as easy to understand as possible. So when we're bringing new developers on, they can kind of just get it. So yes.
Can you do a auto clustering nearest neighbor analysis to identify your scope of where the nearest neighbor would be? I mean, you're doing like a 1-by-1 search.
Yes.
And then you're searching out. Where if you just take like all the people that do tennis and just found, well, what's the average distance to the nearest neighbor, and then use that distance as your minimum starting distance, and not necessarily worry about your longitude and latitude, but just use that distance to identify beginning of your search, and then work from that with multiples of the nearest neighbor distance.
I would have to think about that. That might be too much processing or inserting the data, but yeah, I'd have to.
I mean, if you play tennis, you're probably going to play tennis in the same location. So over a period of time, you'll have like an auto-correlated area of people that play tennis at a set location, because that's where the courts are.
Yep.
So, and they're like within the city of Austin, they're distributed.
Yeah.
And in some areas they cluster, in some places they don't. But you still do analysis to identify the nearest neighbor. And once you've done that, because I'm sure you have a large data set to play with, that you could possibly use that to optimize your current postal
Yes.
square.
So we could use that to refine the base data set that we have in here. And that does make sense to do at some point, right? But for now, this is just a simple solution that we came up with. What we do is we add the. Well, I'll show you. So what we do is, for example, this box that we have set up here would have the zip codes in all of the bordering areas, right, or the nearest ones to it.
Yeah,
right?
you're basically taking a roster approach to the zip code problem.
So anyway, so this works for us.
I'm sorry, could you read the box? I really can't read the little fine print in the blue box with the yellow and red.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So
Yeah.
yeah. So basically, what this has is it has the latitude and longitude times 100 for each one. So this is 302. So it's 30.2. This is 97.7. And so what that represents is this box represents at the equator a area that's 7 by 7 miles. Okay. So if I want to figure out exactly where I am, right, in space, and I know my coordinates right here, and I want to know what the zip codes are around me or the nearest zip code to me, ahead of time, I pre-build a table, okay? This box, would basically store the nearest zip codes to me, okay? So on the web server, right, on my application server, I know I'm here. I pull all of the zip codes around me. I see that I have, 1.8 mile, 2.1 mile, and 0.8 miles. That's the nearest one to me. So I assume my zip code is 78741.
And so those are distances from the center of that box.
These are distances from me to these areas.
Ah, okay.
These areas. Because as soon as I pull back all the data, all the information that I deserialized, these will have latitude and longitude in them. I can run a quick calculation to determine what's what. Make sense? So, and in dense cities, right, you might have 30 or 40 zip codes in a 7 by 7 area. So, but, I mean, your server can process that extremely quickly, right? So it's not really an issue. And you can scale out your web servers all day long. So, make sense? Any questions?
Speaking of resolution again, does it have to be the same resolution across the entire grid, or can you actually vary it so that you get higher resolution in more dense areas and lower resolution?
So yeah, so you could do that, right? So you could break these out into smaller boxes, and we talked about breaking it into a like 0.7 mile resolution, right? But then you're dealing with so many rows, right? That it's insane. And I mean, you could do it, right? We just haven't had the need to do it just because we're not there yet, right? Once we get to a point where we have enough users on the system, right? That's something that we might do, right? Because basically what the server would have to do is it would have to calculate how far each one of those people in that 7x7 is from where you are, right? To give you your rows, right? In addition, you could, once you know your location and all the resulting people in your area or zip codes, you could let the server filter out anything else. So we're starting at 7x7, how it's stored in the database. However, that doesn't mean you can't filter out everything after that's more than 5 miles away, or more than 2 miles away for that matter. Right? So this is the column family that we created for this, right? The latitude E1, longitude E1, those are our primary keys. The country and zip code would be the equivalent of our column name. So I'm going to insert a little bit of data. You notice here that I'm just changing the zip code in these two. So, and then when we do our select, we can pull everything back based on, these would be the coordinates of our current location, right? And then we return the location, which is JSON data. I did not include all the JSON because no one would want to read all that as well. But that would basically contain the coordinates that you could then use to determine how far away you are from that person. Make sense? So, things to know, the row width is 1 to 50 or more columns. This solution was short-lived. Because we started using the location services on the phone to determine, address, things like that. We do use it as a fallback on the web, and building out this table with, basically breaking everything up into 7x7 or approximately 7x7 square mile blocks took about 3 hours to build on a pretty decent sized box. So, next thing I have is the city name lookup, right? And this is something that you could easily do on Solar. Aaron and I were talking about this earlier. However, I wanted to reduce the amount of different technologies unless I needed all the powers that Solar had to offer. So, as a small team, that kind of makes sense. You don't want to have to deal with multiple fires if you can avoid it. So what we did for this is we created a lookup table, right? We took our city database, we broke out all the various search terms, counted occurrences that those appeared. So for example, AUS appeared in the database 31 times for Austin, Texas. Various zip codes would, be listed as Austin, Texas as their city. So that's how we basically determined relevance. So the search term AUS is the primary key. The number of occurrences and the location and full city name is the column name. So this is this is what the create statement would look like. So we're going to add some data. This is kind of the data I just described. The JSON data would be all the location information with latitude, longitude, and this is what a select statement would look like. And then you could sort it however you need, loop through, and present your data set to the users. So, things to know about this, right? If you're dealing with a single character, you're going to have a very wide row, right? So we typically limited it to 2 or more characters when we're building out that, this, our primary key of AUS there. We remove all white space, special characters, etc., just so we have a better search. So, all right, the next thing I want to talk about, any questions about that? It's pretty straightforward. Solar would have been a great solution for this, except I just didn't want to add another technology to the mix.
It's not at all clear that you need it, so.
Yeah.
Normalizing city names for a query is not that tough.
Yeah, I fully agree, so, yep. Yes?
I'm pretty new and ignorant. What's solar?
It's a full text search solution.
SLOR, if you want to Google it.
Okay.
So,
But it's like an add-on to Cassandra or?
DataStax Enterprise has a version of
Okay.
Solar that sits on top of.
It's its own open source project. You can integrate with Cassandra.
So,
Uh,
yes.
Excuse me, so you had another piece of code that obviously digested all this and spit into Cassandra at the.
Everything I've talked about, yes, I have, I basically am building out these gigantic tables ahead of time, right? And the reason I'm doing that is because, I wanna do the processing once, right? And do it when users aren't waiting for the processing to.
Right, and so do you also have then code that amends that table over time, like you feed in new stuff and it's able to?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yep.
you do one-off loads and stuff like that?
Yep, so, basically, we assign every piece of information a UUID, right, and then we can, just change it or however we need to.
Okay.
So, alright, so, postal code range search. You wanna find the nearest zip codes to you, right? We assume here that we know what country we're in and our existing postal code. Our primary key is the country and postal code, and then our column names would be the distance from us times 100, right? Just because we want, I don't like dealing with decimals, so that's kind of what we did. So what this would look like here, and I don't know if you can see it, but so we have our location, in the form of country and zip code, and then here we have the distance that each of one of these other zip codes is away from us. Okay, Cassandra will sort this in order of the distance it is from us first. So it's just a very simple way to know what's near you. So here's our table create script. We're going to insert some data. These slides will be available, so if you just want to copy and paste this information, you're welcome to. And then this is what a select would look like. So if I want to know what zip codes are within 2 miles of me, this is the query that would return that. Okay. Select from the zip code distance, US. I punch in my zip code, 2 miles, and then I order by distance just so the closest comes back first. Questions? So things to know about this, you can build the rows to be as big as you want, right? If you enter every single zip code in the United States in here, that's about 45,000, so you can just have a really big row, which isn't a problem. Cassandra is extremely performant when you go wide. So, all right, so distance between postal codes, right? This is also another very simple solution. We don't use this as much as we used to, just because it's relatively inaccurate, right? Again, a zip code can be anything from a single building all the way up to 10,000 square miles. But basically what we did is we just built out a table that listed, where the primary key was the location. Our current location is country and zip code, the country and zip code of the other location, and then the value would be the distance. So this is what that table looks like. I'm going to insert a little bit of data into it, and this is what the select would look like. So again, this all performs like extremely quickly. milliseconds, yes. Do you have a question? Oh, sorry. All right. Again, you can build this out to be as wide as you want, but you probably want a one-to-one match for every zip code in the United States. So, all right. Final thoughts. So why are we doing this, right? I kind of touched upon this when I was talking about not introducing solar. I want as few technologies as possible in the mix, right? I have, it's me and one other guy doing the development on this, right? So anytime we're spending working on issues is time that we're not developing new features or fixing other things, right? And that's both from an operations standpoint and a development standpoint, right? My developers don't have to learn 6 different technologies, they just learn one. So, however, be reasonable with this approach, right? So, Cassandra can solve a lot of problems, but when you actually get to the point and you're actually trying to force data or force a solution, that's kind of a problem. So the other reason I love Cassandra is because it allows me to pre-build reference data, right? Almost everything in here was pre-built. Some of the tables I could populate within a minute. Others took 3 or 4 hours to build out, right? However, response time from the client when they're making requests is in the order of, maybe 7 milliseconds, so it's extremely performant. So, and that's about all I got. So, do you guys have any other questions? Yes?
So you said you were still using Thrift. Which API did you use for that?
What do you mean? What API?
Like Hector?
Yes, Hector. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So, yeah, that was kind of the standard at the time, so.
Yeah.
How big is your cluster?
So we have 4 nodes in each availability zone, so it's relatively small. So.
The replication factor 3 on that? Or?
Correct, yeah. And it's all Amazon, so obviously.
How was that setting up AWS with Cassandra? Is there a plugin for it, fairly easy?
I basically built out my servers on my own.
Oh, okay.
They do have some, but yeah, I kind of like control.
Okay.
So.
Was it the distribution from Apache or that you used? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yes.
So how much time do you spend managing your clusters?
None. So, practically none, right? So I have automated jobs that run to backup data, right? However, since that's not as much of a concern of mine, I've got a job that, some cleanup jobs that run. But it was kind of, set it once and forget it. I have alarms that go off to tell me when things are going wrong, right? I dump stuff into a queue. It kind of aggregates that information when there are errors and sends them to me. But I have next to no trouble with Cassandra at all.
Okay. So if you don't mind, what size AWS node are you running and how many?
So obviously we have 8 for Cassandra, right? 4 in each availability zone. I want to say they are M3 largest, maybe? It's been a while since I set it up. But yeah, nothing too crazy.
With the SSD storage on it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I probably don't need that, at this point, I don't need that much redundancy and that much power, but, better safe than sorry.
Do you have any plans on doing like some Spark or background analysis stuff later on, or?
Not with Spark, yes, we've been talking about ways to use the data that we're collecting and whatnot, but we haven't, we haven't had time at this point, so maybe post Series A. So.
Any performance benchmarking you may have done for the services you presented?
So we did a little, right? Everything returns within 10 milliseconds right now, right? So it's pretty performant. so, from the application level. Yeah, and we track all that stuff within the application, so we write to log files and things like that, and then parse them later.
Did you load test it or just few of you guys tested it?
A few guys testing it right now. We haven't done formal load testing here, just because it takes a while to
Yeah, sure.
set up and knock that stuff out.
This is the last thing.
What's that?
This is the last thing after stuff works, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Then you go jump on load testing and things like that.
We definitely will be doing that before South by.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah, but during South by, people will be too busy drinking and chatting with each other to go take this.
Yeah, he'll offer a free beer.
I'm optimistic that there will be a few people out there that wanna get their morning workout in before.
Maybe if you had like a dodgeball competition.
We'll have stuff like that in there, so.
So Cassandra was the only database you used for this, right? You didn't have a SQL one first, or?
Correct.
Okay.
So, in previous companies, I have had SQL databases, and they work fine until a point, then you kind of hit a wall, and then, it's all hands on deck. You're trying to figure out how to make this thing scale, and,
Yeah, I noticed you said you started with Cassandra in 2011.
2011, yep.
And is that when you started for this, or were you exposed to it prior to this?
We started exploring it at .loop, and it never made it into production, which I was kind of disappointed about. But it was the clear choice as soon as I started this. I left .loop in about 2013.
So what version of Cassandra?
2.1. Any other questions? Cool. Well, thank you guys for coming. Help yourself to as much swag as you want, and enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Eat more pizza, guys.
Good job. You've seen it, right?
I get to see about one movie a year, and surprisingly, I saw that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The book. Man, it's so much fun.
Really?
Yeah.
The Martian?
Yeah.
I keep telling everybody, I said, it doesn't matter if you've seen the movie, you need to read the book, because they're different.
Oh, yeah.
Because you've done both?
Yeah, I read the book before I saw the movie.
I did too.
It's funny.
Well, when he was going across, to the, Scarecrow crater.
Yeah.
They did, in the movie, they didn't have him almost get killed by the swamp.
Or how it's figured out.
Yeah, how he figured out he was. But he rolled the, rope.
Yeah.
Yeah, going into the crater, they didn't have that.
Well, that's why I like that. I told everybody, make sure he has to read the book too. Because the book. I can't tell you the last time I read a book where I actually burst out laughing.
Yeah.
And then the
The movie doesn't have a lot of humor.
Exactly, it's more about the relationships and a little.
Yeah.
I think this is totally different, so I tell them. Read the book and I don't
Yeah. Yes, but, some of it, they just go so fast in the movie, it's like, get all the.
Well, they're downtown the next day.
But you can do both nowadays.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, I enjoyed the book more.
Right, oh, yeah.
But I didn't feel bad when I went to see the movie, because I didn't feel like I was reading the book. I felt like they did a different.
Yeah. Yeah, have you seen the movie, the what, Imitation Game?
It's good.
Yes, I did. He did a great job. Have you seen, Ex Machina?
Oh, Ex Machina, yeah.
Whatever, yeah, I think, which one's that?
It's an AI.
Is that the one where she blocks the action?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that was so wrong. That was so wrong. Oh, I didn't know.
She optimized her way out of it.
You're just part of the way.
My company right now, yeah, so we're doing like some tornado housing and Physi, you know.
Some people are really. It's not bad.
Some people did it, maybe. And I've got a lot of
I mean, it makes sense. Actually, you're not as good as
There's way better.
yeah.
I went to FA this year.
Yeah, it's all.
You're